All right, let's roll. All right, everybody. Very special guest today. Welcome back to Soup and Stuff, presented by the Pine Room Studios. Is it Glenn or Mr. Elliott? What do you prefer?
You can call me Glenn today.
What about Dr. Elliott? What about the honorary doctorate degrees from Wheeling and West Lib?
I do have 2 honorary doctorates, but I've never been called Dr. Elliott before.
How about how many more days can we call you Mayor?
The last day I will be mayor is June 30th of this year. So I don't know. I don't have the countdown.
I'm surprised you don't know it exactly to the day.
I used to, and then I got involved in this other campaign, and it's kind of, taken my focus away from that. But yeah, it's counting down. It's a matter of months.
I was going to say, how much has the upcoming your new venture taken away from your mayoral duties?
I try to stay as informed and tuned in as I can. I've only missed 1 meeting so far. I may miss a couple more. We're at the point now where, look, it's campaign season for city council. So everyone on city council right now is either running for re-election or 2 of them are running to be mayor. So this isn't the time when council is going to be really considering a lot of new ideas and having discussions. Everyone's in their own little spheres. We have a couple projects we've been working on, each of which are about 18 months in the planning stages that I'm really hopeful we can get done before this term ends. But beyond that, we're mostly just kind of sitting back and seeing how this campaign shakes out for them. And no one's really going to be out in front on some big bold issue right now in the middle of a campaign season.
When you look at the before we start talking about your venture, when you look at the mayor's race, the upcoming mayor's race, do you think this is going to be one of the most tightly contested mayor's race since you can remember?
I wasn't here in 2000 when I think Nick Sparshane then had 8 or 9 people in that race. I was living in D.C. at the time, so I didn't really. I've read about that race and talked to Nick and others about it, but I wasn't here. Right now we have 6 people in the race. I know 5 of them. I don't really know Mr. Carpenter.
Yeah, I don't either.
Of those 5, I think they all bring a certain constituency to it. So you could conceivably have somebody winning this race, and this is something I was going to mention with 25 or 30% of the vote. And our charter has no provision for a runoff in that situation, which to me is maybe something that city council should look at. Because nothing against, look, if you get if you get more votes than anyone else, that's great. But if you get like 25%, is that really a mandate from the?
Yeah, that's a good point.
I ran twice. When I ran in 2016, there were 4 in the race. I got 53%, and then in 2020, I got a smidge under 50. I took a hit in part because of the user fee, and people weren't happy about the 2-way traffic thing, and the user fee was. But I've never been in a situation where I get 22% of the vote and I'm mayor, because that's a tough way to say you have a mandate in that situation.
Yeah, when you look at this contest, and you say 6 people, what do you see as the what word am I looking for? Like who do you think Danny Magruder's voters are? Who are Chad's voters? Who are Rosemary's voters? Who are JT's voters? Where do you see a demographic for each of those, or do you think it's just wide open?
I do. Obviously, Chad and I have been pretty closely aligned at the hip. I've endorsed him. I think a lot of my voters are folks who are being inclined to support him. I think Rosemary taps into a much younger demographic of folks who maybe in the past haven't voted in mayor's elections. So I think she brings more people into the race. Had it just been Denny and Rosemary and Chad, I think Chad, Rosemary split votes, and then Denny ends up getting all the folks who are either disgruntled or tired of me and Chad, because we've been in the news a lot.
100% is what I said.
Yeah. But then when JT gets in the race and
then
Beth gets in the race, it throws it up to really anybody.
I agree.
And I don't really know JT that well. I've met him before. He's not been a fixture at city council meetings, so I really don't know what his sort of message is. But he's got signs everywhere, and signs do, help a little bit in these things. So it's going to be interesting. Obviously on election night, I'm going to be grinding my own teeth because of the other little campaign I'm embarking on. But I will also be watching this race with a lot of care. We've done a lot of the last 8 years, and I've been supporting Chad because I know Chad would be the guy who would at least continue the same direction. And to me, I don't want to see us take any steps in the wrong direction. I think we've really moved the needle these past 8 years.
Is it when this ends, your mayoral? Yeah. What I call it, the mayoral tenure.
Tenure.
Yes. Is it going to be bittersweet, or is it going to be, oh, thank God it's over?
A little bit of both. This has been, and you can ask my wife, and she will testify to this. Like, it's a lot. I mean, it's been a great honor for me to be able to be mayor of my hometown. I mean, not a lot of people get to do that. I gave up on this town when I was a kid. I moved away, never thought I'd come back, but then I did come back, and having a chance to be a part of its sort of revitalization, renaissance, whatever you want to call it, has just been something that I will always cherish, always treasure. It's great to get to talk to different groups and represent the city, but I'm not going to lie, Coach. It takes a toll on you. It's taxing. Sometimes you just want to go to Kroger and you just want to get the frozen food there, and you don't want to have someone corner you and say, "Well, what about my street? When's it getting paved?"
Yeah.
There are parts of it I won't miss. I'm not going to miss the social media trolls who just like make like social media so much less pleasant than it could be. But that's going to happen. If I get elected to this other thing too, it's going to be the same thing. But that's made it like, as a candidate back in 2016, when I didn't have a lot of name recognition, I absolutely love Facebook as a way to get my name out there, as a way to get engaged in the conversation. But the minute you get elected is the minute you become the target online for anyone who doesn't like anything in Wheeling.
Yes.
Maybe life didn't work out the way they thought it would. Like, you're the easy target, and you're the one they're going to come at, and it just changes your relationship with social media 100%.
And you know what's funny about that too is when you're out in June and then the streetscape and all this is done, the people that are coming in, my God, thank God Mayor Elliott's out and Chad are out, because now we got something done finally. Those guys, they screwed everything up, and we finally got rid of them, and now look how beautiful Wheeling is. So that's just going to happen. It's the way it is. But
before we got on the mic, we were talking about how busy you are right now. I was looking at Wheeling.gov. How do you, every single Tuesday in March, you were booked with stuff, city council or something. Was there nothing going on tonight? How did Betsy get you time in here to come on and talk?
Well, we're hitting the road tomorrow, and I just happened to be that I'm in town yesterday and today. We like to keep a day a week for admin purposes, making calls, making sure that all the campaign bills are paid, everything's getting done, setting things up, and then we like to be on the road at least for 3 or 4 days a week. This week, it just so happened I didn't have anything on Monday or Tuesday, so I was here. I saw it on the schedule. I love what you guys are doing with this podcast, so I said, absolutely, bring me on. Let's do it. Look forward to it. I didn't know if you guys did a lot of politics, but hey, I know we've talked some football before. But,
well, we're not gonna do 100% politics here. We're gonna talk Steelers, food, and your son, and real fun stuff.
I want to know about the mischievous cats too. I was reading about them a little bit as well, man. but we'll get to them. I want to start. Let me rewind here a little bit. 1990 graduate of Lindsley.
Yes.
How did that prepare you? Because we're all business driven, went and got our MBAs. I think this world is so cool. How did Lindsley prepare you for UPenn and going into that business program? Was it as competitive back then as it is now? And what was that kind of process like?
I can't imagine even trying to get into UPenn without the Lindsley experience, just because, well, look, Lindsley back in the day, you all know Mr. Diorio, probably remember the name. He ran a pretty tight ship. And for me, being in public school, I never felt like I was really challenged or pushed. And so, I remember when I queued up to Lindsley and I got a summer reading list. I'm like, what the heck is this? Summer reading list. And then as I've thought about it, the main advantage, I think, it's not that it's not a great school. I think it's a great school. I think the main advantage that it brought is smaller classroom sizes, and so teachers can give you more individualized attention. Because I think what I needed at the time was just someone to take some interest in me and make me realize I could do a lot more than I was doing. Teachers there like Mr. Hahn, who was just a legend in Lindsley circles, Dr. Mallow, Dr. Innocenti, who's passed away. These people just took an interest in me and really made me love the idea of studying. And I remember when I was taking the calculus AP exam, I didn't really care how I did on it, but I didn't want to let Mr. Hahn down. And I'd never had anything in my life where I really wanted to do something for someone else's purpose. Like, I didn't want to let him down. And, that kind of got me driven academically to where I could even apply to Penn. And, so I don't know if I'd have been pushed that way elsewhere. So, very warm memories of my Lindsley experience. I learned a lot there. It pushed me. It got me out of my comfort zone, and I treasured that experience.
So from UPenn, you went right to work, right? Didn't go get your JD immediately.
I did not. I went. I majored in finance there, but I didn't really hear the call to Wall Street like a lot of my peers did. I minored in political science. I took an internship in '92 with Congressman Mollahan here from this what was then, I guess, I think it was the first district then. Worked with him for that summer, then got an internship at the Democratic National Convention in New York City, where I got to meet then candidate Clinton and then candidate Gore. Met a lot of folks then. That completely immersed me in the world of politics at the time. My next year, I interned for Senator Byrd, and then after I graduated, I got a job with Senator Byrd in his office in D.C. and worked there for 5 years. It was in the 90s. It was when the Senate was still, even though they were starting to grow apart and a lot of dysfunction was starting to get into it, it still actually worked. They were able to balance the budget, but by the end of the 90s, people don't remember that, but we had a balanced budget in 1999, and now 25 years later, we haven't had one since. So, I was there and got to see Byrd's role in all of that, which was fascinating. I got to sit by him on the Senate floor, watch him give speeches, some of which I had written for him, which was just, chilling to, I think back on. Sitting there in the room with, legends like, Ted Kennedy, Arlen Specter, Jesse Helms, all these people around you. Just a great experience for a 22-year-old kid when I was starting out of college, just to be immersed into that world.
What's the competition level like right now, especially going after the Senate, compared to when you had to run for the mayor? Are you kind of having to step up your game? Is it the same strategies that you've learned and you had to work through? But what is that? I think competitive levels in all nature, school, academics, sports, this kind of stuff is incredible to watch. So what's kind of that like in your mindset?
It's hard to compare. Obviously, when I ran for mayor the first time, it was my first time ever putting myself out there as a candidate. I had to get confidence in myself. Just like, is this something I can do? I was never like a gifted public speaker. This was not something in my comfort zone. And here I am thrusting myself into that environment. When I first ran for mayor, though, I was able to sort of catch a little bit of a vibe. My campaign had a little bit of a vibe to it, and I don't know that you can put that in a bottle and repackage it. It just happened. I was able to catch on. And frankly, nothing against my opponent, but he didn't run the most sort of agile campaign. I think he ran a very formulaic campaign in that race, and I was kind of doing like the online stuff, the social media, the more out there stuff, and I was able to win. Now, running for Senate statewide, it's just a very different equation. There's not really one or two media entities. There's like 30 or 40 you got to deal with. There's the national dialogue going on as well. And the other part that I was talking about when I came in is you have to raise money at a scale that, I think my first mayor's race, I raised $50,000. To be competitive in the Senate race, I have to raise over $1 million. And that's just a whole different game of, and that's just, on my end. And that, I've got to win my primary and then, make it into the general election and then get the national party to stay interested in this race as well, in which they need to put some more money in as well. So it's a multi-million-dollar situation as opposed to, $50,000 here for a mayor's race. So it's some overlapping issues, but also it's a little bit apples and oranges just in terms of the scale and the demands on my person. I'm trying to be physically everywhere I can. It's easy to be everywhere you can in the city. We've got 6 wards. You can make sure to be in every neighborhood every week and, talk to people, knock on doors. Well, you can't knock on, 400,000 doors around the state. You'll do. I'm trying to be everywhere, but it's putting a lot of mileage on the vehicles and a lot of time in the car. But so far, it's been interesting.
Yeah. So talk a little bit about. I look at it. I think you're going to have a really, really good chance in the primary. Obviously, you feel that way too. But then it's sort of like West Virginia beating Princeton, then they got to play Iowa.
Yeah.
So what's ahead, and you know you're going to have a big, tall task ahead. Talk a little bit about how you're handling that, knowing you're working so hard to get through the primary, and then you got to face Jim Justice.
Yeah.
So talk a little bit about that.
I'll take a step back. I'm not taking this primary for granted.
No. I'm not saying that either.
Well, what makes it a very sort of complicated scenario is, it used to be just one other candidate in the race running to my far left, and I thought that was a nice contrast. With me running more as a centrist Democrat and him running more on a socialist platform. I thought that's a nice contrast. I like that. But then at the end of the day, Don Blankenship gets into my race. As a former Republican, he switched parties and declares. That throws a whole X factor into it that I think if independents decide to jump into the primary and vote for him, it can distort the outcome that otherwise may be there. So it's got me running a little bit nervous and, running extra hard because I just don't know how that's going to shape out and play out. But it doesn't change my ultimate messaging, which is, I'm running to represent this state as a traditional Democrat in the mold of, Franklin Roosevelt, John F. Kennedy, old-fashioned Democrats, just like my grandparents used to talk about around the kitchen table. That's the type of values I'm bringing to this race. But, so if I do win the primary, and again, I certainly hope to and I plan to, but if I do win it, it's going to be an entirely different type of scale, because I'll be starting 30 points down on a good day.
Yes.
Given where the race in the state's dynamic is right now. Look, assuming that the governor is going to be the likely nominee, he obviously comes into that with incredible popularity.
Yes.
But I don't think the popularity runs as deep as it is necessarily broad. I think he has a lot of increasing personal financial issues, which are starting to catch up to him. I think any one of them could blow up. I mean, the optics of some of his properties being auctioned off at a courthouse in Greenbrier County wouldn't be great for a look for someone who claims to be a billionaire. You have different issues popping up at the legislature from him kind of being not there with his hand on the switch every day. He's pretty much an absentee governor on many days. If you talk to people down there, including Republicans. And you're hearing different stories of the state police or the tax division, of different things not being caught in a timely manner. So I think there's that there. And then, frankly, the issue that I don't think Republicans have fully thought through is the issue of women's reproductive choice. Mm-hmm. They had that right for 50 years in this country. And then we had a Supreme Court decision, and we had a governor and a legislature a couple years ago who rushed up, did everything they could to enact a ban, basically denying women that right they had for 50 years. They haven't been forced to account for that in a presidential election year since. And I can tell you from talking to women across the political spectrum, there may be a lot of women who are uncomfortable with the idea of anyone ever having abortion. I certainly understand that, but they like the idea that there's at least the option in the choice. And I think that choice now being stripped away is something that I think every Republican candidate running is going to have to be spending some time thinking about. And that's something that, in the absence of that decision by Dobbs, I think it's a non-factor. But now it's become a factor only because of the changed reality on the ground.
Have you heard any early numbers on you guys, the primary race for you guys?
Not really. No, it's early. Most I know is there's a lot of undecideds at this point. Our race is not getting nearly the attention as the Republicans. Both the Republican Senate race and the Republican gubernatorial races are getting all the airtime right now and all the oxygen. I am, making a second round here at some statewide radio in the next week or so, and hopefully get the word out more, starting to get more signs out and all of that. But it's been tough to get any oxygen for this race because everyone's thinking, well, whoever wins the Republican primary is going to be the de facto winner, and that's fine if everyone's thinking that way now. It doesn't bother me so much now. I let people be sort of overconfident about that. It doesn't bother me. I think when I first ran for mayor, I benefited from, someone being overconfident. And I think that is something you never want to have that in your candidacy, overconfidence. And I learned from when I worked for Senator Byrd. He was, I think, in his sixth term as Senate, would usually win by 70-30, and he was still terrified of losing. And he always ran hard. Even as a man in his late 70s, he ran hard, and he put it all into it. He didn't take it for granted. That's what you have to do in this game, because people's opinions can change.
Oh, absolutely.
Things can change overnight. And, look, I know the governor's sitting in a very comfortable spot right now. I don't think he can go up at all. I do think he can go down. And it's on me or whoever the nominee is to really fill that gap and sort of give a different message and a different vision because when the governor ran, Coach, you probably remember he had signs around Wheeling that said, "Are you tired of being 50th?"
Yes.
I think I voted for him that first time. He was running as a Democrat then, of course, because I was tired of being 50th.
Yes.
Well, last I checked, we're still pretty much 50th. We depend on Mississippi sometimes to bump up to 49th.
Yes, we said that on the radio.
But we're still 50th. And, we can't keep doing the same things we've been doing and expecting different results. That's what I think Einstein said, the definition of insanity. It's
Absolutely.
Time for a new approach. And I'm not going to defend a lot of actions Democrats made in the years they had in control. But we've tried 10 years now with Republicans in control. And I really think it's time to go back to some common sense and some decency and some normalcy and, get the state in a position where we can actually be more competitive going forward.
Talk a little bit about, and then I'll turn it over to Soup here. Talk a little bit about the campaign trail now. You obviously... You've expressed how busy you are. Your family knows. Everybody around knows how busy you are. Talk about the strategy. How does that Obviously, everybody knows you in the northern. Well, at least in Wheeling and probably north, but down south, especially way south, over in the Eastern Panhandle, the heart of. Well, talk about your strategy. What is your how do you approach it? I have no idea how you do that.
Well, it's a moving target. We're still trying to figure it out. One thing I did that's somewhat unconventional is, I could have hired a sort of tired old a political person that's run 10 campaigns in West Virginia, but I didn't want to just run a traditional campaign. So I brought in someone. She's very young, 31. Betsy Sweeney, you all probably know her. I kind of stole her from another local nonprofit. Sorry about that, Wheeling Heritage, but brought her on board because she'd expressed interest in the campaign. She doesn't have a lot of campaign experience, but she's brilliant. She's very good at social media. She's very good at telling stories. She's very good at just connecting with the types of voters we're going to need to get excited about this race. And so she's running the show, making sure I'm everywhere. We're trying to, at this point, because it's a primary, we're trying to go around and meet with all the different Democratic committees in all 55 counties. Obviously, I'm not going to make it to all of them before the primary. We've met with probably 20 so far. We have a few more queued up for this week and then next week. But that's the strategy. Just I talk to the folks in those communities who are most politically engaged on the Democratic side. I've had a lot of opportunities to be in forums with the other opponent on my left, and to talk about and to see the contrast between candidates. We haven't seen Mr. Blankenship at any of these things yet. I don't expect to, but I'm not sure he'd be welcome at them, to be honest with you. But yeah, so just get out there, show people the contrast. I believe I'm the only person in this primary who has been registered as a Democrat for his entire life. I think the other two have switched into the Democratic Party recently. I'm your grandfather's Democrat. I really am I grew up, thinking that government, while it couldn't solve everything, it certainly is a way. We need to. I have some faith and trust in government to get the basic stuff right. Programs like Social Security and Medicare have to work. We have to protect our infrastructure. We've been able to do a lot of great things by believing in the power of government to get some things right, recognizing it's going to get some things wrong. I think we have some now on the other side who just think government is always wrong and never gets anything right. And then they get elected and it seems like they want to prove that the government can't do anything. Well, look, I mean, we're in a very competitive world right now, looking at places like Russia and China, where they don't have the sort of inconvenience of elections like we do, and they are making sure that their governments are doing things as effectively as possible to be more competitive than we are. We have to make sure our government's investing in the future. We have to be competitive in space and technology and all of the above, and that doesn't come from believing that government is always the problem. Obviously, government can get things wrong. It has gotten things wrong, and you have to be always mindful of that. But we're in a weird era now where it's just like people are running because they seem to hate the government. We have people running to get rid of the FBI. We have people defending people who were attacking police officers on January 6th of a couple of years ago. Like, what is this anti-government sentiment? It's not constructive. It's not helpful. And it's certainly not putting us in a place to be competitive in a very increasingly dangerous world.
Hey, Soup, and then I'm going to try. I have one more just flew into my mind thinking about your campaign. So how do you approach, like, if you go to Boone County, Wyoming County, Calhoun County, counties that none of us are, how do you approach them and learn their, do you just use a West Virginia platform, or do you try to learn the needs of Wyoming County or Boone County and try to approach it as they're more apt to need this as opposed to High County needing this, Wyoming County needing this? Or is it just West Virginia in general? We need to continue to use coal. We need to, internet for everybody. What's your approach there? Learning, it's like learning about a person.
Well, before I go into any county, we have some other campaign staff and some volunteers, folks who've been doing, county by county worksheets for me. So for each county, I have a pretty much a snapshot. And one of the smart things I've done in the campaign is bring on a campaign intern who's basically driving me everywhere. So we're going places. I can read. I can be on the phone. I can be distracted, and he's driving. And he's a great driver. Doesn't make me nervous like my wife does, which is great. When I'm driving with my wife, I can't concentrate on anything except the road because. But he's a great driver, and that's been a godsend. So if I'm going last week or 2 weeks ago, I was down in Greenbrier County, and that's not a county I'm deeply familiar with.
Right.
But, I'm reading up on it down there, and. I will say this. Yes, there's some different regional aspects. Some parts of the state, obviously coal is much more important. Some part agriculture is more important. But at the end of the day, there is a common theme among West Virginians who are just tired of us always seeming to be the punchline for jokes on the late night shows, and tired of seeing their kids leave. I was talking to a woman in Webster County the other night last week, and it was so sad. I just thought about it because Webster County doesn't have a lot of access to broadband. And, this is a woman probably in her mid-70s, whatever, a grandmother, lamenting the fact that her daughter years ago moved down to Charlotte, like a lot of West Virginia expats have done. And, wants to move back home because she can now work from home, but they don't have reliable broadband. And she talks about when her grandkids come to grandma's house and they want to dial in and play their games online and they can't. And all right, we're talking about broadband, but for her, it is denying her her family's ability to continue in the county she wants to be in. And a simple thing like broadband access everywhere is absolutely essential. And it's I'm not saying that we haven't made it enough a priority, because there's a lot of things, but we have to get broadband everywhere, especially when we have a governor who's trying to make this state a beacon for remote work. Well, you can't do remote work without access to reliable, high-quality broadband, and it's something we take for granted up here in the Northern Panhandle. But there are a lot of parts of the state where they just don't have it. Yeah.
How in the world do you market and get a message across to the Gen Zs and millennials right now?
Well, that's why I hired Betsy. Because honestly, one of the things I've noticed going to all these Democratic committees and meeting with people is, quite frankly, the gray hair in the room. I bring my own into that, but the average age of these committees and the people invested in these communities, engaged in the political aspect of these communities, is probably 65 or 70 and up. You don't see a lot of 20-somethings. You see a handful, maybe 40-somethings, but we got to get more young people tuned in. I think a lot of the Gen Zs have just tuned out. They think, whether it's from TikTok or whatever, they think that the government just doesn't listen to them, is not caring about what they have to say. So we have to do a better job at that. It's something that if I had the answer to, I've already be doing it, but we're trying. Betsy did get me to go on TikTok. Now I've got 5 or 6 TikToks up.
There we go.
One of them got some traction, so much so that I heard from a niece that I'm trending on TikTok. So that was that was a big deal. That was a big deal. So no, look, there's no secret sauce there to get people to buy in, but we have to do more than we've done. I don't think that's something that the Justice campaign is going to be very sort of adept at doing. We have to get young people engaged in the state.
So 2013, you moved home, correct? 2013?
2009 is when I actually moved home.
2009, you moved home. 2013, you buy the professional building.
I buy the professional building. Yes.
When did your time slow down to where you're like, okay, let's give this a push and let's finally let's go after a mayor spot, and then obviously your career path changed big time.
The building was a transformational thing in my life, only because it was crazy any way you think about it, to buy a 6-story building when you're not independently rich to do it. But I'd moved back home really with the idea of maybe spending a year here and then going off to something else. And then I fell in love with Wheeling. That as a kid I didn't see all the potential here that I saw when I came back. I started looking at stuff like where do I want to actually plant my own roots. My father lived out in Marshall County. I didn't want to live out in Marshall County. I wanted to be in Wheeling. And so I saw the building was for sale one day, and I'd walk by that building when the Italian Festival used to be downtown. I'd probably walk by the building 1,000 times and never really stopped to just appreciate its architecture. And I remember standing there having one of those aha moments. Oh my God, this is available. I think it was available. I think they were asking $120,000 for it. I offered them $60,000. A week later, we had a deal for $70,000, and all of a sudden, I've got a 6-story granite building as my home. And it's taken a long time to get it livable. We got the first floor. We have 2 businesses in, 2 local law firms, and then we live on the second floor. But that really got me engaged in so many different conversations locally about what was possible. I met the folks at Wheeling Heritage. I started going to council meetings and started paying more attention to what city council was doing. I thought that the city council was doing some good things, but I didn't see the overarching vision for where we could really take things. So a couple of us all got together in the winter, or I guess January, February of 2015. It was me, Wendy Scatterday, Chad Thalman, and Jeremy Morris. And the 4 of us said, let's all run. I'll run for mayor. Chad was going to run for Ward 1, Jeremy Ward 2, and Wendy in Ward 4. And we all just decided, let's do this. Let's run as a slate. Put our names out there. And the Intelligencer cooperated by giving us a great announcement headline. I think it was a Sunday paper, all 4 of us up there. And that got people interested in the campaign. And then we had Brian Wilson jumped into the race from Ward 3. Ty Thorngate jumped in from Ward 5, and we had a lot of young people. I'm calling myself young, and though I was in my 40s at the time, but most of them were younger, and we're all sort of challenging the status quo, and it was exciting. It was an incredibly exciting campaign. Like I said, we had that vibe that it's hard to, if you have it, you have it, but you can't just package it and store it and take it out of the wrapping again. But but without buying the building, I don't think it would have connected me to all the different pieces of that puzzle. I saw that building really for me as a metaphor of the potential all trapped in Wheeling, and it just needed some nurturing, some love, some TLC, and some sort of a vision as to where it can be. And of course, with my building, it still has ways to go. But so does Wheeling, really. I mean, I think we've moved the needle, but we're not where we need to be.
No, I think that's what I was gonna. Yeah. That's what I was gonna ask you. The needle, us watching it grow. Right, I'm in my mid-20s, seeing how much it has changed already from when we graduated high school 8 years ago to where it is now. I can't wait to see it 5 years from now. So that was my next question. When you're all done and the mayor and it's done with everything, what is going to be most proud from you looking back to see what you did?
Honestly, it's not so much the building stuff. It's the we've done some things on civil rights that I'll forever be proud of, only because I know how hard it was for some folks on council to vote for some of those things. In 2016, we did a non-discrimination ordinance for our friends in the LGBTQ community. That was, I don't know if you remember at the time, but it was like multiple headline after multiple headlines. City to consider this ordinance. We had people come to council telling us we were going to burn in eternal hell and purgatory. People saying that kids were never going to be safe in restrooms throughout the city. All these horror stories. And then, I put it up for a vote and it passed 7-0. And, I'm very, very proud of that. We were able to pass things like the Crown Act. We were able to just to really push the needle forward on civil rights a little bit. Something I'm proud of that didn't get a lot of attention. In 2017, about 6 months into being mayor, we had a lot of people encouraging us to close down the American Legion Post 89. It had run into some mismanagement. There had been a shooting there in 2015. Someone died. We were getting almost weekly complaints, emails, Facebook posts saying you got to shut it down. Easiest thing in the world to do would have been to shut it down. But for me, for other members of council, this was the historically Black Legion that was the Black Legion because Black veterans weren't welcome at the other Legion back in the day when it came to be. So it existed for a very ugly reason, but it had a proud history. It had just fallen into hard times. We met with their management and said, you got to fire your manager. We worked with Owens Brown and Darryl Clausell at the NAACP. Really got everyone around the table. And to this date, I don't think since then, we gave them basically all ultimatum, do X, Y, and Z, and we won't deem you a nuisance. And they did everything they said they would have done. And I don't think there's been a police call from there since that I've seen.
Nice.
And that's almost 7 years later. So stuff like that is not the stuff that we'll be remembered for maybe. But to me, it's the stuff that I'm proud of because I can easily see a lot of other city councils just saying, close that place down. Yep. I'm tired of it.
What's the next step? Yep. What's the next step Wheeling needs to take that you can see over? Because I want to see it keep growing. Everyone our age wants to see it keep growing because I think one of the coolest things is if kids our age do leave, but if they come back around the surrounding area and they can't wait to visit back to Wheeling and come back and see their parents that are still here, siblings that are still here, what's the next big step to see us to get that needle to move even faster?
It's a tough question because one of those steps is one of those projects I've been working on for 18 months, and I can't say what it is yet, but it's one of those projects. But look, young people are looking for a couple things if they want to come back to Wheeling. There's a small subset of them out there that may want some of the great fixer-upper opportunities we have out there, but we need a lot of them just want housing that's brand new, shiny, never been lived in very much. Ideally somewhere where they could walk to work, walk to restaurants, walk to some bars. That means more downtown housing, more people and foot traffic in downtown. One of the things that our state suffers from is we don't really have any major urban cities. Our biggest cities are Huntington and Charleston at 50,000 people. And nationwide, I think only Vermont has a smaller, largest city, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So we need to do all we can to make the cities we have feel as urban as we can and get that vibe and downtown feel with, I'm not saying 24-hour traffic, but at least, it can't look dead at
18
5
to
p.m.
20 hours.
Yeah, it can't look dead at 5 p.m. at night. If it looks like a ghost town, you're not winning that game. So it's going to take it's not one big thing, but it's going to take more people living and working downtown and creating that vibe. More investments like Waterfront Hall, which to me has just been a home run of potential.
Goodness. It's unbelievable.
And Dan Middleton and his team deserve a huge shout out for that, just for making that possible. But that's the type of stuff. So it's not going to be one thing. I think it's going to gradually happen. Obviously, like visually seeing the streetscape done is going to. I mean, the number of complaints we get about the roads down here are astronomical.
Have you had anyone lose a shoe in one of the potholes yet?
God, all the jokes, all the memes, everything. And I would say citywide, still 50 to 60% of the public still thinks the city owns those streets downtown. And even though Chad and I had a radio show for 5 years, and we told people every week it's a state project. It's a state project. Doesn't matter.
Now how do you, being that you're traveling and seeing the state and probably places you obviously haven't seen, I haven't seen. I've been to some like Pocahontas County.
What about Paw Paw?
I mean, just different places. How do you compare Wheeling in the Ohio Valley? Well, let's not say right now with the roads, but in general with now Waterfront Hall and the Bory Lofts and the Doris and some of the other buildings that are being refurbished and Bridge Tavern and things that are really starting to heat up here. How do you compare Wheeling to like some of the other comparable cities and areas in that state?
That's a great question. Well, obviously, I've spent some time in Charleston over the years, and they have like their downtown's a little bit disjointed, but they have the Capitol Street area, which to me, I would love to see that kind of brought here. It's two walls of mostly historic buildings with outdoor seating, bars, restaurants, all the way down there to bookstores down there. That's the idea for what I see urban living being. There's really nowhere else that has that exactly. I was in Martinsburg a couple of weeks ago. Incidentally, the Waterfront Hall is the first state-authorized ABCA food court. Our friend Elliot deserves some credit for working with the state to get that put in there so you could have a food court and serve alcohol.
Wow.
Well, the second one in the state just opened in Martinsburg. It's called The Garage. I think it's on King Street, downtown Martinsburg. And they actually have eight different bins of restaurants all queued up and then a bar up front. I went in there and I'm like, oh my God, I couldn't figure out what to eat. There were so many options.
Absolutely.
But that gave it I think you'll see more stuff like that happening. You see some downtowns, and I'm not going to name them because I don't want anyone to get mad at me, but I've walked through some where if you don't have an antique, you might have an antique store here or this, but then it's all vacant windows. And that's what, we're trying to do is restore vitality to those downtown footprints, because that's what people, like it or not, a lot of people think that we talk too much about downtown here, but people define the health of Wheeling a lot by what its downtown looks and feels like.
Yeah, absolutely.
All the pictures in the old restaurants around town are of downtown in the heyday.
Hustle bustle.
And you can't have a downtown with vacant buildings and empty storefronts and have people feel good about Wheeling. Even if the neighborhoods are all doing great and we have Ogilvy and all the other things, our downtown is the way we're going to be judged.
Yeah, 100%.
And I think about that when I go around the state, because you do see some downtowns that are still hurting. And it's tough. It didn't happen overnight. In Wheeling, our decline happened probably over 30 or 40 years. It didn't happen in 1 year. So you're not going to rebuild these overnight. But, that's a big piece of the puzzle is give the opportunity for folks who want that urban living environment around the state in a mostly rural state. But there are folks who are going to want to live here in urban settings. We have to make sure we provide that for them.
And don't you think, honestly, and we're biased. We're all biased and live here because we love the state. Don't you think West Virginia, honestly, is as beautiful a state and has as much to offer as any state? Now you're going to say, Texas, California, Florida, but to me, that's not like homey to me. That's real commercialized. I think West Virginia is got so much to offer and is so beautiful. And the more pictures you see of the places, and you're getting to see them now, how do you compare the state of West Virginia and as an unbiased, you're biased, but unbiased?
I'll be as unbiased as I can be. I think the most physically beautiful state in the country is Utah.
Okay.
But there's not a single place that I'd want to live in that beauty because it's mostly stark and arid and desert. But it's absolutely gorgeous. I don't know if you've been out there, Coach. There are parts of Utah that look like you're on Mars or the moon, or it's the most disparate landscape and the great rock formations and everything. Northern Arizona is close with Grand Canyon and Sedona, but Utah is something special. But there's not a single place in there I want to live. The great thing about West Virginia is we have all this natural beauty, and it's all inherently livable.
Yes.
Our climate, it's not ideal. It does. I mean, it rains a lot. We have a lot of clouds, but if anything, our summer season here in Wheeling seems to be expanding on both ends until like early March now to,
November,
almost November, which is different from when I was a kid, at least.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
So really, I don't think you can pack the combination of physical beauty and livability into it. Utah's a great place to visit, but you wouldn't want to spend your time out in those deserts, I don't think.
Personal level right here. I was reading piano and guitar player. Is that still active as of today?
Yeah.
You still play often?
Often, I probably play once a week. I had reached the point where I just played guitar, but then my son, I have a 2-year-old son, and he loves the little piano. We have just electric piano, so I got him playing that, so I play more. But I used to be able to play 100 songs on piano. I could probably play 2 now. I could probably play 100 songs on guitar now, but just rhythm guitar. I'm not much of a soloist.
Wow. When did that start? Was that something that you picked up while you were at Lindsley? When you got to UPenn, you were tired of getting an A on every class, and you said,
this is a story that only Generation X would appreciate, but. As a kid, I took piano lessons. Like I think every kid took some piano lessons, and I liked it. I never really stuck with it or never mastered it, but it was good enough to, pretend that I could play piano. But then I got to college and joined a band. This was in 1990 at Penn. I joined a band as a keyboard player because bands at that time still had keyboards in them. Well, then I came back to college my sophomore year, and Nirvana, Nevermind, had just released, and it was incredibly like the next day it was uncool to have a keyboard in a band. Like you couldn't, and the guys in my band basically said, if you want to stay in the band, you got to make yourself useful with something besides a keyboard. So I literally learned in about a month how to play power chords on a guitar, enough to where I could get by in front of people and not make a fool of myself, and it just became a passion. And I've kind of loved guitar even more than piano ever since. It's just it's more mobile. Quite honestly, when you're in college, like the girls seem to like it better than the piano. So it was just. Sorry if my wife listened to this. I apologize. But yeah.
Talk about your. All right, you got everything out of the way. You got things. You got a Saturday where you don't. Let's take your wife and Harrison out of. Talk about your perfect day. And I could mine would be like hanging out with my buddies, drinking beer, watching college football, gambling all day, laughing, and so talk about like your perfect day.
Well, you're asking me to talk about a perfect day without mentioning my wife and son.
Well, they're out of the picture.
All right, they're out of the picture. So,
right.
All right. So
they're not gone or anything. They're away. They're at the in-laws house.
Harrison's at Chick-fil-A eating all the
They're at the in-laws.
I just don't want this packaged and quoted. Like doesn't want his family in his perfect day. Actually, since I moved into that building, I like to find some time every weekend to get in some work, and there's always a fixer-upper project. So I like doing work. I like getting my hands dirty. It keeps it real. Unlike a lot of other things I work on, I like the actual results of immediacy. You see something, you fix it, and it's fixed. It's not like you're not just like moving a small piece of a much larger puzzle. But then throw in a Steeler game, maybe. I knew that was coming. A 4:30 Steeler game.
Oh, there we go. Get your work done. Get your work done.
Get the work done.
Work
have a couple beers.
Those are the good times when the Steelers start at 4:30.
That's a great day right there.
And then the Steelers beat the Ravens.
The Ravens.
The score's 10-7, and
then play some guitar that night. Just kind of thinking back about it.
Now you frequent a lot of eateries in the area. I see you all different places. Like I am. That's my favorite.
Yeah, we're food connoisseurs.
It's my favorite time of the day is like between 11 and 12 because I was at Waterfront today. Actually, I was there twice today. I've eaten there. I'm starting to eat there too much. But what do you? And I don't want you to like leave anybody out. Do you have a favorite eatery and a favorite pub?
That's a dangerous question.
Yeah, it is a dangerous question.
I will tell you my wife's favorite eatery.
There you go.
She loves Figueretti's.
Oh,
so good.
Solid.
It's just
that vodka sauce.
It's counterintuitive. You look at the place and you think, all right, wouldn't you want to fit that restaurant in a bigger place and accommodate more people?
I say it all the time.
But what makes it what it is that it's tight and it's
absolutely
cramped, and it makes it almost homey feeling inside.
100%.
And Tony or Dina walk around and always stop at our table and talk to us.
And the Italian music going.
You got the Italian music going, and for me, like my dad knew Tony, went to high school with Tony, so he'd always. It's just like the connection. Like
yes,
I've been going to Figueretti since I was a little kid, so it's a great. I just feel at home there.
Someone you walk in there, and we talked about that on the radio today because Job had a song when we came in. Dean Martin was on. I said, this reminds me of Figueretti's. When you walk in there, you get that feeling, that Italian feeling. Like I always imagine an Italian family sitting around and mom's bringing all the spaghetti and everybody's talking it. So anyway, Figueretti's. So how about go have a couple of cold ones? Any in particular place?
Since Waterfront Hall has popped onto the scene,
yeah,
I love it because I can walk to it. It's a block and a half away.
Yes.
So if you're going to have any beers and you don't want to drive, it's a great option for me. And you know, I just love what Dan and his team have done down there.
Unbelievable.
And so I like to support it.
Awesome.
He's got a good collection of some craft beers, which I like. So no, it's been a good addition, and that's probably become my go-to.
This is perfect timing. I was thinking about this. How do I go about getting a law passed in Wheeling? Because I have an unbelievable idea.
All right.
Have you ever heard of a social district? How some of these cities you can pick like 5 to 6 restaurants in a road on a street where you're able to take beer to beer in a walking.
It's called a door.
Is there
a designated outside recreation area?
How do we get one passed in Wheeling in the next 4 years?
We have tried, and believe it or not, some of the local restaurant owners have not necessarily gotten on board with the concept.
It's awesome.
I think what we have to get past is this notion. Well, because I think about it, for so many years, our downtown and our restaurant scenes have been sort of fighting to protect the customers that they have, and we haven't been in a growth environment. We're now entering a growth environment where there's going to be a lot more opportunities, but it's hard for restaurants to get on board with the idea of someone being able to come in and then leave and go to another place. They want to get you in there and keep there. We've tried to push that conversation. There are some on board, but I mean, others have pushed back. I really think the next council will be in a position to do this. Again, this is something Delegate Fluharty helped us out with to get that legislation there so we can do doors in the first place. I know a couple other West Virginia towns have them in place. There's always going to be some issues where people walk around drinking. It's going to have some nuisance effect to it, but I think at the end of the day, it makes places exactly the types of places folks want to be.
Yeah. And one of the coolest things I've seen is we've been very blessed and grateful to be able to get to travel this country because of school, because of sports and work and everything. One of the coolest things is when we go to one of these cities and they have that where you can go from bar to bar to restaurant to restaurant, and there's music playing at different places. And I completely disagree with them saying they want to keep them here. More people will come in your doors when you get to walk around and drink from place to place. I think it would be awesome and Wheeling to have
it. If I have an overarching theme to my time as mayor, it's getting us away from the zero-sum mindset. A zero-sum mindset makes sense in an era of scarcity where things are contracting and shrinking. It makes complete sense to protect what is yours and what you have. In an era of growth, like you should want, if you have a restaurant here, like you should want another restaurant to open up next door to you. And then you should want another one to open up right there, and then a bar there. If you're a brewery, you should want another brewery to open up next door because it makes that a place more of a destination, and it brings in demand that's not even there yet into the equation. But it takes a growth mindset, and we're still in this community a little bit kind of teetering between are we zero sum or are we growth mindset? Yeah. We have to push that into the growth model.
All right, so let's go this way. Because he's running.
Wait. How much time did Betsy give you?
Wait, hold on. Not much more.
Wait, I got a hypothetical question.
Wait. I got one for him. Okay, Steelers. Let's talk Steelers here.
I knew that was coming.
All right, here we go. Russell Wilson, Justin Fields.
Yeah.
Let's talk. You like it? And which one do you see
starting week one?
Oh goodness, you guys. It's hard not to like getting a Super Bowl winning quarterback and a former first round quarterback with a ton of talent, basically for the prices we've got them for, which is not very much.
Not much.
I commend the Steelers for basically giving up on the Kenny Pickett experiment. They may be proven to be wrong, but the guy had look. I wanted everything in my heart for the kid to succeed. He just didn't seem, with the opportunities he had, he didn't seem to be progressing. If anything, he seemed to regress a little bit. In that game, in that position, you can't have any confidence issues, or so I like the move. It takes a lot to admit you made a mistake. They basically admitted they made a mistake.
Yep.
I would have liked to see Mason stick around.
Yeah, me too.
Honestly, because I think Mason showed something at the end of the year I hadn't seen from him before. But look, Russell Wilson probably has a year or two in him left. He didn't play terrible last year. I mean, the system was a little bit of a mess in Denver. And I think there are other issues in terms of the dynamic between him and his coach there that maybe didn't get off on the right foot. I think Coach Tomlin can do something with him to maybe make a run. It gives us the luxury of being able to spend more on defense, bring in a Patrick Queen, which was a big gap in our defense, our inside linebackers last year. So I like it. I don't know Justin Fields that well because I'm not a big college fan, and all my college fan friends are like, "Oh, he's incredible. He's incredible."
He's awesome.
Yeah, I just don't know. I've seen what he's done in the pros, and it's a mixed bag.
It is.
Can he watch Russell? Can he sit back and learn for a year? Look, I expect them to draft somebody in this. I don't think they'll draft first round, but I think they will draft somebody, and as an insurance plan. But or bring in another free agent at some point. But I like where we are. Honestly, everyone talks about our offensive woes, but our defense last year, it just could not make stops on third down when they had to. And I can think of many games where just one stop would have been the game. And and it's not like we don't have all world players on our defense, but we had gaps and holes.
They added some good pieces there.
They did. And they came in. Everyone's always saying you're only in these games because of your defense. Well, our defense was ranked 20th overall last year, so now it goes back to Tomlin. Tomlin's helping us win the football game.
What's a Sunday like for you on if you don't have much going?
What if the Steeler games are on?
Yeah, Steeler games.
I'm watching the game. I mean, you can ask my wife. I've probably missed 2 games since '94.
Now, do you get?
That's what I'm talking about.
When they don't perform well or things? Do you get angry and?
Oh yeah. My wife made me stop. She made me control my outbursts because we do have a toddler.
You were scaring Harrison.
Yeah,
what's wrong with him?
We have a toddler, and all right. So one time when he was just a baby, I pounded the coffee table. Dang it, whatever. She's like, and she just looked at me. You can't ever do that again. We're on him. And I'm like, okay, all right, honey. So now I just kind of, under my breath, if you had a video camera, you'd see me screaming at myself. But look, I take it personally. For me,
take it personally.
The people that aren't sports fans, like looking at a grown adult or watching younger men or whatever compete in a sport that has nothing, like no direct impact on their life and says you're crazy. It's only you can only understand it if you grew up with it. And for me, the Steelers are our connection to 5-year-old me. I was a fan as a kid.
Me too.
It's honestly the only constant in my life over the last 47 years. I wouldn't trade it for anything. I love the Steelers.
Absolutely.
I love what it means. And they've given me some gray hair, but they've also given me, I don't remember the first 2 Super Bowls, but I remember all the ones since.
A lot of enjoyment.
It's so much fun, especially when you win a game when you're not supposed to. And just thinking about all the players we've gotten to watch, it's so fun.
And I think my favorite part this season is now I'm getting my son to watch the games with me, and he always wears a Steeler jersey. And he was looking at the logo, and then he saw on the scoreboard on the TV screen, he saw the logo, and he went up and touched the logo. That was like, that was special.
That was like a baptism.
Yeah,
Instead of cutting your wrists and putting them together, he touched the logo.
Like a light appeared, and so he's gonna have no choice but to be a Steeler fan.
Last 2 things, I'm gonna let you go. I've got 2 more things written down that I really wanted to ask you.
Right.
Licensed drone pilot.
Yes.
So I wanted to ask you this: if there's 100 people on a commercial airplane and the co-pilot got stuck in Wheeling traffic heading to Pittsburgh, and you're on that plane, could you help the pilot fly it home? The commercial airplane.
Absolutely not. But I may know how to read the signs at the airport. For some weird reason, the test to fly a drone has a lot of antiquated stuff about all those signs you see when you're taxiing on the airways. About they're based on the direction of the runway. I didn't realize this. They're based on 180 degrees or whatever. Of like north south or whatever is the number of those runways. So now stuff like that you have to learn for your drone test that has no bearing on actually flying a drone. If the FAA is listening, I'm sorry, but it's just no. I got it from my real estate business. I got my license. I've had a drone before, but it's another hobby of mine, just to take different shots and show off our city from different sunsets and buildings and architect. Yeah, it's been sort of a hobby, although I don't have as much time for it these days as I used to.
So you said real estate business. One last thing, then we're letting you go. Final question.
I got one more after that. Go ahead.
Do you still have 4 LLCs?
I have yes.
Because every one of them that I found online, Elliot Law Offices,
yes.
Route 40 Realty,
yes.
1310 LLC,
yes. And Market Street now, LLC.
Market Street. Every single one of them is either named after your last name or the street that it's on. So can the Pine Room name the next business that you buy?
Hey, that's an option.
We'll get creative and name your next business for
I'm not that creative when it comes to it, but Yeah. I don't know. I guess I need to hire a consultant for better naming of my businesses. Some of those are, my LA law office, I keep it active, but I haven't practiced law in about 8 years now and don't intend to go back to it. I do keep my law license active. You never know, but
Yeah.
All right,
Yeah.
May 4th, Waterfront, North Atlantic Beer Mile. Right? Are you familiar with it?
No.
Okay, May 4th, Waterfront. We're partnering with Dan Millison and Ian Gawley in the Waterfront Hall. The first annual it'd be the inaugural. Some guy corrected me on it. It's never a first annual until it's done. The inaugural North Atlantic Beer Mile. You familiar with a beer mile?
I'm familiar with the concept.
Drink a 10-ounce beer at the beginning. Run a quarter of a mile, drink a 10-ounce beer through
4 beers, 1 mile.
1 mile. Would you be able to do it?
May 4th is 10 days before
No,
my
I'm
primary.
I'm not saying you got to run it.
You're going to be there.
I'm just wondering,
could you do it?
Well, I'm 52. So
What would be the hardest, running or chugging?
Running would be the hardest part.
The chugging you could handle?
I mean, you have to actually chug, or you.
Well,
I haven't done a lot of that since my college days. But
well, you don't have to stand on your head and drink out of a keg or anything. Just straight up.
I could do it. I'm not sure I would enjoy it because for me, like beer drinking or wine drinking is something to just do slowly. Hey, to each his own.
There's where the millennials are going to shine.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
So you are invited to that. I know it's a busy time for you. Chad said he would come and give the opening remarks and welcome everybody if you're not available. But
I'll probably be somewhere downstate on that.
We would figure,
Good.
Yeah. So we're I tell you what, the Pine Room guys, we're excited to be part of the city, and we've been really getting involved with a lot of the things that are going on around here. And we beat on the roads too. It just comes naturally. We have fun. We make jokes about it.
Yeah.
But we can see a vision, and we're glad to be part of it because we've had a ball. It's just been awesome seeing it grow, and like the waterfront. Oh my God, it's one of my favorite places in the world right now. So, and you've been awesome. We wish you the best of luck in your upcoming venture. It's we're excited to see you.
Best of luck. We appreciate you coming on.
Well, I thank you guys for what you do. I thank you for this opportunity. This has been incredibly fun. I had no idea I'd have so much fun. Thank you guys.
You were tired of answering the same old mundane questions?
Yeah, exactly.
All right. That was Mayor Elliott. Thanks, buddy.
Glenn.